Pretty busy weekend for me. I wasn't here. I was out of town. I did record a little bit on Saturday, but I wasn't really around anywhere to upload, so I wasn't able to get into any sort of editing position uh, or uploading for that matter. But I was able to watch a little bit of sports. I watched the Hockey Night Canada, Canucks and Maple Leafs on Saturday, and then Saturday night, Pereira versus Adesanya. I watched that fight. That one was pretty good, although me and my buddies, we just watched it at home. I really wish that we went to like a restaurant and we watched it there or something like that. Because the atmosphere probably would have been better. The just the quality of overall where we were and the fight itself, the volume, those little things. But anyway, the sports that I was watching, I watched a little bit of the Vikings and the Bills. I watched the ending. Didn't watch the overtime. Had to go. Had a bunch of family stuff, family reunions, Sunday night football. But that was, I mean, that was yeah. No, I'm not talking about Sunday night football, which has been as disappointing as Thursday night football. I think that was definitely a pretty bad Sunday night football game. But Monday night football, how about that? That was pretty exciting stuff. I mean, almost as many turnovers as that Vikings and Bills game tonight. But the Washington Commanders, they did it. They pulled through and they took down the Philadelphia Eagles. They beat them 32-24, was it? Yeah, that was pretty impressive. So I'm really excited now. 32-21. I'm really excited to see how the season is going to end because there's been so many narratives that have been built up and people have been looking at this team, that team. It's like, writing off the Seahawks, hyping up Buffalo, hyping up the Chargers, hyping up the Raiders, hyping up the Broncos. You know, did anybody hype up the Dolphins? I think they did. You know, that was pretty. It was pretty exciting to see Minnesota. I'm a Minnesota fan. I would say I don't really cheer for. I mean, I just enjoy the game of football. I want to see a good matchup. I want to see exciting players. I want to see explosive drives. I don't want to see punts. And nobody wants to see punts. Nobody wants to see their favorite player fumble the ball. These kinds of elementary things. So it was exciting to see the Vikings. My dad's from Winnipeg. He's been a Vikings fan from his time living in Manitoba, South Manitoba, very close to northern Minnesota. He was also a Bills fan when he lived in Toronto. But I think Vikings, they haven't won. Neither have the Bills, of course, but I think the Vikings got a little bit more of an edge for me. I don't like Stephon Diggs, not because he left the Vikings. I'm glad that the Vikings let him go. But because I think him personally, he probably just cares more about himself than his team winning. Winning is nice. Super Bowl is nice. But at the end of the day, if he is being praised by those tens of thousands of fans, he probably enjoys that a little bit more than someone else succeeding. But who am I to cast judgment on him? He's got a lot going on. Being one of the top receivers in football, being on one of the best teams in Buffalo, in the Buffalo Bills, who at the same time, the Bills, they could end up being at the bottom of the AFC East next week. If the Patriots win and if Buffalo loses again next week, that would be, I mean, the team that's the Super Bowl favorites, that would be an upset. No doubt. They're playing the Browns, not too worried about them losing to that game. I think that Buffalo is still the favorite, though, because Josh Allen makes it look so easy. And I'm not worried about Philadelphia either, because they lost today, but similar to Buffalo, Jalen Hurts makes it look easy. Their offense and their defense, both of them complement each other very well. They're both very complete teams. This game was just an anomaly for Philadelphia. I think that they're going to be able to come back storming through the Indianapolis Colts next week. It's not going to be a huge issue for them. We can all lose our heads tomorrow when we look back and we reflect on this game. But it's not simple. It's not like that. It's something that you need to realize. You need to look at it again at the bigger picture. Realize that the NFL season, there's a lot of things that can happen between now and to the end. What's going to happen to players' health, injury, players coming in and out of the lineup. There's a lot of things that can factor in. Of course, we have to set expectations for teams when they start in the season so that we can get a little bit of an idea of where they're at. We need to almost assess the offseason so that we can look into the future. We need to have expectations for certain teams. We can say, oh yeah, that team is now complete and they're going to be a Super Bowl contender. So we're writing, the Chiefs, the Bills, the Eagles, maybe the Vikings, the Cowboys, the Buccaneers, all these other teams. It's going to be very interesting to see how it ends. So I'm looking forward to that. And I also still think that the Bills are that complete team. But they've had their trouble. Allen's had his trouble in the playoffs, in overtime. We've been seeing this. We've been seeing consistencies from him. The Bills have had their problems in the past, but I do think that it's very easy for turnover to affect a team. We don't have to be looking at these as if they're generational curses, and if they pass on to the next team, to the future team. That's just not how it works when you're constantly adding and exchanging new players. But again, back to the whole hype thing. We were looking at the Raiders. I was looking at the Raiders. I thought they were going to be great this year. Everybody thought Russell Wilson and the Broncos were going to be amazing this year. People were writing off the Seahawks. Now, granted, that NFC West division is a little bit different than we were expecting. Things aren't what we thought they would be. Because the Seahawks are 5-4, that division could be anybody's. They had a very low percentage at the beginning of the season. I think it was about 12% to come out on top of the NFC West, but now they're closer to the 65-70 percentage chance, right up there with the 49ers. We're going to have to see how the 49ers turn out at the end of the year. I still think that their offense is a little bit of a mess. Elijah Mitchell comes back from injury. So now Kyle Shanahan is feeling less and less inclined, I feel, to put the ball in the air, to put the ball in play. You're getting the ball to Ayuk more than you're getting it to Samuel. You have Deebo Samuel on your team. Freaking use him, right? I mean, the guy's an absolute utility knife. The guy is tough. Get in the ball. You're going to get yards after a carry for days. Get Kittle more involved. You have CMC, and that guy is a total focal point for the offense because pretty much you can get, again, whatever you want out of him. You got another utility knife. It's not like there's anything wrong with the 49ers as far as output and production because you're getting wins with these guys. But I still think that there's a question mark because their identity has shifted so much in the last few months. Everyone was hyped for Trey Lance and Elijah Mitchell. This was going to be the offense. Deebo wasn't going to have as much of an impact because they would probably run the ball more. And then everything changed after week 1. Trey Lance goes down. Jimmy Garoppolo comes back in. And then Christian McCaffrey comes over. And Garoppolo's still there. So are we thinking Trey Lance and McCaffrey next year? That NFC West is going to be just a total dogfight to the end of the season. That's what I'm thinking. So the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Vancouver Canucks exchanged blows. I think Vancouver started the game with a 2-0 lead. And Toronto comes back. They came storming back in that second period. And then they kind of just coasted to the end. That Atlantic division is wide open. I think the same with the Pacific division. The Canucks are not out of the race because they're a few points behind the wild card spot. Every team is kind of looking a little bit inconsistent. I'm thinking about Calgary and Seattle. The Kings are looking a little bit good. Edmonton, I think, is on the come up. Vegas, of course, you could say almost they're just taking over the Pacific division. And then I was kind of thinking, say there's so the Colts beat the Chiefs in week 3 or 4, whatever that was. You could say that was an upset because the Colts were just an average team. Now they're a little bit worse than an average team, especially since a few weeks ago their offense was probably the worst offense that there was. So the Colts beat the Chiefs earlier in the season. Could we equate that to a really good hockey team losing about 4 or 5 games in the regular season to a team that they should have beaten? because the St. Louis Blues beat Vegas on Saturday, 3-2. And St. Louis is currently up 3-1 against Colorado in Colorado right now tonight. Is this just a testament to how the Blues are turning things around, or is this just another anomaly? I think it's an anomaly because Vegas is not going to be falling apart already. But these kind of paces like 12-2 start the season, 11-1, 13-3. These things aren't necessarily sustainable. What is Boston? 14 wins in 16 games? It doesn't matter if these things are sustainable or not, because when the playoffs start, that's what we're going to be looking at. The playoffs, very much that. Is the team built for it? Is the team ready for it? I think Toronto is very much capable of playing well in the playoffs. They're not playing a whole lot great this year, but I think it's very important to note how a team plays. Not necessarily just wipe off the losses. I think it was a very interesting start to the season for the Tampa Bay Lightning. They've really got to figure their goaltending situation out because Brian Elliott has been playing better than Vasilevsky. Andre Vasilevsky, by the way, is the 5-time in a row wins leader in the National Hockey League over the last 5 seasons. And, of course, the playoff success. The team has been able to perform very, very well in the playoffs. But what I looked at, what I wanted to take away, the year that Tampa lost in the first round when they got swept by Columbus, I wanted to look the next year to how the team was going to be different. That's why I'm not worried. They had a huge win last night against Carolina, but the team has been playing together as a whole. We're not seeing a overexpenditure of offensive production from the top line. We've been seeing it equally distributed out, getting the defense scoring, getting the third and fourth line scoring. That kind of balanced offense. And, of course, you've got one of the best goaltenders. I think he's the best goaltender by accolades and by achievements in the last 5 years to make him the best goaltender in the league. You got Vasilevsky. You got, in my opinion, the second best player on the team in Hedman. And the captain is either third or the fourth best player on the team. It doesn't really matter because they play together and they play to win. And that's what I'm not worried about. It would be nice to see Vasilevsky play better because Brian Elliott has been playing better than him. But that's okay. I'm not worried about it. It's just November, as I always say.